Welcome to In Her Voice, a podcast created for women who listen to and live by their deepest wisdom, their inner voice. This was made for you, the woman who feels pulled to more, to lead, to create, to dream, and to be a world changer. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am an inner voice coach. Join me here each week as we explore what it means to reach for your inspired potential, all while honoring your worthiness each and every day. Well, hello there. Welcome to In Her Voice. This is Kelly. I hope that you are well. I hope that you are happy, and I hope that you are overflowing with joy this day. I'm really excited about this interview. I have Elizabeth Shaw on the podcast today, and we're talking about practical optimism for inspired living. And when she reached out to me about doing an interview, I was like, heck yes, let's do it. You guys know that I am an eternal optimist, but it's so interesting because my husband and I often have conversations about optimism versus pessimism versus realism, and is it nature or nurture? And if we're able to change who we are by the way that we think. And Elizabeth and I dive into quite a bit of those ideas and more on this interview. Before we hop into the interview, I just want to remind you that right now I am accepting applications for my summer mastermind. This is a very small group of women, each of who has an idea that they are ready to bring out into this world. Something maybe that has been simmering for a long time, or maybe it's a brand new idea, but this is for you if you feel like you are ready, or maybe if you feel like you want to be ready and you aren't sure. Maybe there's resistance holding you back. Maybe your perfectionism is popping up. Maybe you have a lot of excuses about why you haven't done this yet. Well, this is the summer of no excuses. This is the summer that your idea can be born into this world so it can start creating the impact that you were put on this earth to make. And the group is all about supporting you in your actions, in your bold and inspired actions, because just like I talked about on last week's podcast, you're not going to be fulfilled by doing the things that you quote unquote should be doing, but you're not going to be fulfilled by doing nothing. So that fulfillment requires action, and it requires action that is aligned with your soul's true purpose. And that is what this summer mastermind is all about. I would love for you to apply. The application process is just the first step. There is no commitment by applying. So if this is something that you're interested in, and you want to learn more, go ahead and apply. The first group session, our first meeting of the mastermind, is going to be Tuesday, June 25th. So there's still a lot of time to get in. I have a few spots left, not many, but a few, because it is a small group. But if you're feeling the pull, go ahead on over to my website at kellycovert.com/mastermind. And you can apply and then set up a call with me, and we will move from there. It is going to be an amazing summer, and I can't wait to share with all of you about what has been brought into the world come September. So once again, that URL is kellycovert.com/mastermind. So now let me tell you a little bit about Elizabeth. Elizabeth Shaw is an eternal optimist, building a world of optimism as an author, speaker, and entrepreneur. It is her goal to inspire everyone around her to believe the best in each other and in the unlimited possibilities of the world. In pursuit of this goal, Elizabeth built the Divine brand on the foundation of her passion, optimism, and curiosity. She has successfully educated thousands of individuals and organizations on how to incorporate practical optimism into daily life, work, and events in ways that are tangible, sustainable, and immensely rewarding. So what I love about this interview is I really see this as optimism for people who aren't optimists. And even if you even if you are an optimist, this is such a great way just to dig in even deeper and to really develop a practice of optimism in your life. So here we go with Elizabeth Shaw. Elizabeth Shaw, welcome to In Her Voice.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Well, and I am excited too, because we are talking about really, truly one of my favorite things, and that is optimism.
Yay.
And I know, I'm so excited. And we were talking before, and I said, you don't have to do any convincing of me, because I am 100% glass is half full, silver lining, optimist all of the way. And I thought we would start with having you share a little bit about your just sort of life outlook. Have you always been an optimist? Is this something that you've developed over time? Is it part of your personality? How does optimism work for you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for asking that. I have always been an optimist, and I think some of it is nature and some's nurture. I definitely attribute a lot of my optimism to how my parents raised me. But I'm not an optimist because life has been charmed or easy. I have gone through so many of the same struggles that everyone else goes through, and like you, tried and true, silver lining optimism all the way my entire life. And people are always asking me, how can you remain so optimistic when you've lost your job, when you're dealing with health issues, when you move someplace and don't know a single person and don't know where your next paycheck's going to come from? Whatever it is, how can you remain so optimistic in the midst of all of that? And that's what I have loved talking about and sharing with people my entire life is the ways that I actually am practically optimistic and not just it's all sunshine and unicorns type person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. People say to me all of the time. I mean, I will say something and they will kind of give me the look, that look like, and they will literally say to me, well, that's kind of a Pollyanna way of looking at it, which I take great offense by. But also I understand, because there is an element, like my husband says, he says, I'm not a pessimist, I'm a realist. And that drives me crazy because I think he's a pessimist. And, how do you balance out practical day-to-day living, the real circumstances that we find ourselves faced with wanting to find the silver lining?
I first just want to touch on your comment on pessimism and realism, because I am so easily frustrated by those comments as well, because I think that realism has become a guise for pessimism.
100%.
I think people today just use that as a way to excuse not looking for the best in things, because it's under this cloud of realism, but really pessimism.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for saying that, because I'm glad I'm not the only one who feels that way, because I kind of feel at a loss for words, because to me, the view of like, oh, the sky is falling feels pretty pessimistic to me.
Exactly. But one of the things that I really cling to a lot is the way that I view it or say it is, what you do with the glass is more important than how you see it. So I'm not trying to convince people to see a false reality, to not accept that there are times when things are difficult or challenging, or maybe they're not perfect, but there's still opportunities to find the best or to make something better and to move forward in really positive ways. And so I think it's always about looking forward to what can be improved and made better in the world.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that vision comes into play for you as an optimist? I mean, do you have a sense of, this is how I want my life to look, even though it doesn't look like this now?
Always. I'm very driven, and like you, I'm a recovering perfectionist in many ways. But I always think that there's something more to be working towards and improving. But a big part of it is also embracing the good in what is, even if it doesn't always look good on the surface, if that makes sense.
Well, no, 100%. Well, and I think we both love that quote. Life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities to see beauty and to see amazing things in a life that isn't perfect. And when we can embrace that, to me, it feels so much more powerful than just waiting for things to be perfect. Don't you think?
More powerful and more authentic. There's more meaning in it.
Go deeper there.
I think that as a recovering perfectionist, I used to only look forward and only think that I could kind of be grateful and appreciate and feel worthy and accomplished once all of these things had been lined up and happened perfectly. But it really took me out of living in the day-to-day and experiencing fully every aspect of life. And life is never going to be perfect. There's going to be things that feel perfect at different times, but as a whole, that's not the experience of being human. I mean, being human is about all the imperfections. And as soon as I was able to start embracing that and saying, this can still be really great, I can still find good in this, I can still accept it for what it is, and also want to make it better, there just added so many more layers of depth and color to the experiences every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, so do you think that perfectionism is or can be a downfall for someone who is an optimist?
It was for me for a long time because I stopped seeing the good in front of me or the good in what was, because I was always looking for how to make it better. And I think it goes both ways. I think optimism can also lead to perfectionism because we see the potential in everything. We see how much better the world can be, how much potential someone has, and we want that for ourselves. We want that for others. And so we'll strive for that. But then sometimes it leads to striving for the perfection instead of accepting the greatness and the wonder in the moments.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. So I have so many questions.
We could talk for hours.
I know. Okay. So going back to you, can you share with us when you started to be able to recognize that your perfectionism was actually holding you back?
I think I've seen glimpses of it throughout my life, but the strongest experience for me was about 5 years ago when I finally started my own business. And my entire life, since I was 12 years old, I've had an entrepreneurial spirit. I've always had a side business. And I had been wanting to go out on my own full time. But I kept tripping myself up with perfectionism in every form, from the minute details to what my business name was going to be called. And if I had the right number of clients lined up and the right type of clients and the perfect contracts all outlined. And I ended up caught in that trap for 7 years, spinning my wheels with this plan of I'm going to start my own business. I had the full support of my husband. We were in a position where I had a little bit of flexibility that if it took a while to ramp up, I was going to be okay. But because I didn't have every single I dotted and T crossed, I stayed in a job that I was really unhappy at for 7 years. And finally one day I woke up and I thought, not only is this perpetuating unhappiness in my life, but it's filtering into all these other things because I'm unhappy going to work every day, which is making me a little bit cranky with my husband, which is putting strain on our marriage. It's making me unfulfilled because I don't have a creative outlet. it just stockpiles on top of each other. And I finally said, something has to give, because I can't, life's too short to waste these moments.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and so did you just like draw a line in the sand?
I did. I figured out kind of what my top 3 non-negotiables were, or what was most important, and said, as long as I can have these 3 things, having one client to start with, that felt like a foundation where at least I'd know there was some income, even if it wasn't 100% of what I needed. And learning that good enough is great sometimes. Like, it's okay to say, I have this business name that works and it's good enough right now, because nothing's not nothing, but most things aren't permanent. You can always change it and improve it in the future. And so just figuring out what those kind of key things were to give me a starting point, and knowing I could just continue to adapt and grow and figure it out along the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. One thing that was really powerful for me in my progress in healing myself from that perfectionism is the idea of like how great a B+ is.
Yes.
Right? Like a B+ is good. That's good. And we can work with that. And I just like I was able to release myself from having to have the 100 every single time. And that felt so powerful. And what's interesting, in light of our optimistic spirits, I don't think that it dampened my optimism in any way to embrace an imperfect life. Do you?
Not at all. If anything, I think it's made it more tangible.
Because of why?
Because it's allowed me to broaden what I see optimistically. I don't fall into the traps as much of it. I can only be optimistic about this if it's perfect. I can be optimistic about it no matter what.
Do you find that for you, releasing expectations helps you honor that a little bit more?
Absolutely. And one of the ways I've been working on releasing expectations is how I shift my language. And I've been seeing more about it on other people's social media these days, but changing our perception of the word should, because I don't know about you, but 50 times a day I'm telling myself, oh, I should be doing this, or I should have done this. I should be spending my time in this way. And it's almost a little noticed expectation that we're constantly putting on ourselves of how we should be living instead of what we're actually doing. And as soon as I started shifting that language to, what do I want to be doing? Or why am I invested in doing this? Why is this important? That freed up so much mental space and helped me embrace so much more optimism in how I approach all of the tasks, whether they're things I should or shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, right. And I think with should, it feels so weighty and just heavy and not fun. Like there's no fun in a should to me.
None.
And I want to live a life that's fun, even if that is, I do actually have to clean the toilets. But that's something that I choose to do because I like a clean toilet, not because like I should do it. It completely changes the tone for me.
Completely. Once you're looking at that, the result and why you want a particular result, it changes the experience of why you're doing things.
100%. 100%. So you mentioned that back to like this idea of being practically optimistic, that one of the things that you found to be important in that is to stay really present in your day-to-day life. And I'm curious to know how you practice that. I mean, and all of this is related. I think it feels a little bit, as you're listening, like we might be jumping around, but like it's coming for full circle, right? Perfectionism, plus letting go of expectations, letting go of all of those shoulds, plus being present, all sort of like create this wonderful pathway to finding optimism. So how do you be present in your life?
I started a great morning routine a few years ago when I started my business at the same time, and I began my day with meditation and journaling.
My
And
favorites.
some days I have so many friends that tell me like, oh, well, I'm a mother of 3 and I don't have time for those things. And I tell you, some days it's just 5 minutes. I meditate for 3 minutes and I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. And that's the extent of my meditation and journaling. Some days it's an hour, and it is a luxury that I am very blessed when I have those days, but it's certainly not every day. But I think just something where you take a moment to be still and kind of connect with that inner voice that you have, quiet your mind a little bit from all of the inputs that we have, and then express yourself in some way, whether it's journaling gratitude or journaling through a question that you're deliberating, or just journaling what you learned in that day. I think it makes such a difference.
I love that. I mean, and my listeners know I'm big on journaling and meditation, but any way that you can be connecting with your inner wisdom will bring you into the present moment. And I think also letting go of expectations, taking yourself out of living into the future and living in the now, even while you're optimistic for what the future holds, even while you hold on to a vision for what is possible, you unattach from that expectation and from that outcome so you can be here and love where you are right now. And I think that that is a really difficult thing. I think it's difficult for optimists and pessimists alike, don't you think?
Absolutely. But I always say, kind of, what's the point of an optimistic life if you're not enjoying the life you're living now?
Exactly. It doesn't feel very optimistic if you don't love where you are right now, does it?
No, if you're only looking to the future, you're missing out on so much in the moment.
Right, right. So how do you teach people who maybe don't consider themselves to be optimists how to bring more optimism into their life?
When I wrote my book, The Optimist Manifesto, I broke it down into the different areas of life that I think are kind of the key areas. So the ways that we interact with ourselves, our relationships, our community, our workplace, and the world. And I find that even if someone says they're a pessimist, they aren't necessarily pessimistic in every single one of those areas. And so I'll target, which area do you want to develop more optimism in? Is it something that you see yourself in a negative light and you're always being hard on yourself, and that's something that you want to work towards? And then we start there. And so for self, one of my favorite things, which ties into our recovering perfectionism, is in what way can you choose action over perfection? What way can you just take one step that moves you closer towards giving yourself more grace, or towards a goal that you want to accomplish, and making a choice that reflects hope towards something that you want to work towards?
I love that. And so why do you think action creates optimism? What is it about that can lead us to that?
It's really what creates the practical optimism too, because if we're just thinking optimistically towards the future, we're not actually doing anything to create that or move towards that. So action moves us out of being stuck where we're at. It gives us opportunities to learn and to grow. And it gives us experiences that teach us how to apply the optimism in different ways. So when I started my business and finally said, okay, this is it, I'm going to move forward, there were a number of clients that said no to me from the beginning. And that was okay because I was able to take what I could learn from that and say, that person said no because I didn't have this particular skill set. So is that important to me? Do I want to learn that skill set? Yes or no? This other person said no to me. And actually, that was a really good thing because we weren't aligned in how we worked. And it would have been a really challenging client to have. So it gave more clarity for what I really wanted in my life and business. And so I think action really helps with that.
Mm-hmm. And I love how you're saying when you can reframe disappointment or what some might perceive as a failure or these no's in your life, when you can reframe them as something that can push you forward, you feel so much more powerful.
Absolutely. And there's the reframing after the fact, which are the things you just touched on, but also sometimes before the fact. So many of us are driven by fear, or we're paralyzed by fear, really. And if we can reframe that into a curiosity, like, well, what am I afraid of? What could I learn from this thing that I'm afraid of? What could I learn to overcome that fear? How could I talk to someone else who's been through it before and be curious about their experience? You know, if they went through the same types of fears, it obviously didn't kill them. It probably made them stronger. So what can I be curious about their experience and apply that to my own life?
I really love curiosity as a tool. I mean, it's been coming up so much just in my coaching and in my interviews. I feel like I just want to kind of point it out. Like, things don't happen like that for a reason. I mean, they don't happen not for a reason. I said it backwards. In my life, when I keep getting these cues, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to dig into that.
Yes.
But this idea of being curious about how you're feeling about something. And I think that this can be true if you're finding that you're getting into that sort of pessimistic victim mentality. Oh, this is how it always goes for me. Or why would I expect anything different? Instead of just to sit in that, which doesn't feel good, you can acknowledge it and then be like, well, that's really interesting. I wonder why I feel that way. And then that opens up such a big avenue to learning more about who we are. And it's about self-discovery, really, don't you think?
Absolutely. Self-discovery is such a big part of it. And I think self-acceptance is a piece of it also, because we often punish ourselves almost for feeling certain ways because we feel like we shouldn't. It goes back to that should conversation. I shouldn't be afraid of this, or I shouldn't be so cynical. And then we are hard on ourselves for that. But instead, if we can accept it, say, okay, I am experiencing this. That's part of my experience. And then change that curiosity into self-discovery. It just blows the doors wide open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I think if anything, it should give hope to everyone who feels that they are a pessimist, and I say that a little bit joking because I think I will not include all optimists in this, but I will include myself. I sometimes feel sorry for people who don't feel this way. Like, I think to myself, poor you. Like, I think it would be really hard to live that life, not believing in that something good is going to happen. And instead, I think a better thing would be to encourage people to ask the right questions of themselves to understand the why behind that.
Absolutely. When it comes to relationships, I am huge about trying to see the light in others and helping them see that for themselves and magnify the hope and the strengths that they could be experiencing. And what you just shared is a great example of that. And instead of feeling sorry for them or wishing they had a different experience, helping them understand how they can and where there's potential and light and hope.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Do you have experience, or do you have a story that you could tell maybe of a client that you've worked with who was really able to shift from this victim mentality to a place of optimism?
I do. I have a friend slash client who was in a particular industry for 25 years and did not feel like it was 100% aligned with the work she wanted to be doing, which was some sort of nonprofit service for children. But that's not where her professional experience had been. And she was really stuck in just feeling like there was no potential to actually pursue her dreams because she was of a certain age and didn't have the right education and skill sets and all of that. And so she continued to spin her wheels in the industry that she had always been in and kept jumping jobs, trying to find that fulfillment, those extra pieces that she felt like were missing. And in working together and breaking it down a little bit more, we started with pieces where we found out how she could actually apply some of those dreams and desires she had for serving people just in volunteer hours, 1 hour a week, and starting to at least bring elements of that to build up experience and to open her up to other possibilities. Because in volunteering, she didn't have to have certain educational background. She didn't have to have a master in social work. She could just go and give her time and her energy and her passion for helping people. And then it started to build connections where people saw these skills and the desire that she brought to the team and the organization, and they'd start to tap into her for other things, to where it finally evolved into her staying in her older profession, but with about a half-time job there, and then half-time doing the social work and serving children in the ways that she wanted to. And I think it's going to, over the next few years, continue to evolve, where she is 100% fully in the work that she started pursuing. But for so long, she just thought the only way I can do that job is if I'm in it full-time with a master's of social work, with all of these things that I don't have. So I can't get from A to Z. It's just not going to happen. And it goes back to those baby steps. Just one little thing starts to shift the entire experience.
Yeah. What I really hear you saying is that optimism creates possibility.
I think so. I attribute so much of the fulfillment and success in my life to living optimistically, because I looked for opportunities instead of just being shut down by obstacles. And I look for ways to connect and to see others, and just believing that there is so much potential in the world.
Mm-hmm. So one last question on optimism, but I think it's a doozy.
Uh-oh.
What for people who are working, who are not naturally optimistic, and I do believe that there is an element of personality, like you said at the beginning, like that there is an element of our nature that, you know, makes us more optimistic or less. But when you're trying to nurture that in you, what do you think comes first, the circumstance or the optimism?
If you aren't already inclined to be feeling optimistic, then I think you have to create more circumstances that will help feed it and teach it. It's like a muscle that you have to exercise every day. Even as an eternal optimist, I still feel like it's a choice I have to make every single day, and I have to work towards it, especially in difficult times. But I think also if you're someone you consider yourself a pessimist, like it's a muscle that you can grow and develop and work towards by creating circumstances or taking baby steps towards it.
Mm-hmm. And that's where the action comes in. Oh,
yes.
It's so good.
It comes full circle.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this just makes me so happy, Elizabeth. I adore that you are out letting people know that optimism is a choice, because I don't think that everyone believes that. And I think the more that we remind people that you can choose that, you can wake up every morning and choose it again and again and again, and that it will create a life for you that is more filled with joy and more fulfilling, and not without its struggles, but still so much deeper than what we can experience when we're expecting the sky to fall every day.
Completely.
So good. So I want to ask you before we're done, especially since you clearly have a deep practice of connecting with your inner voice, what is your inner voice saying to you these days?
My inner voice is telling me to simplify and to do fewer things better, which has been a particular challenge for me because I am passionate and driven and curious, and I want all the things. I want to do everything. I want to travel everywhere. I want to meet everyone, all the things. And I'm realizing that that's not all possible all at the same time.
Yeah. We're a lot alike, Elizabeth.
Do you have secrets for how to simplify?
I haven't, no. I say no a lot, but I still do a lot of things. But I'm getting better at saying no to the things that aren't aligned with where I want to be going. And that helps a lot.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here, Elizabeth. Why don't you share with everyone how they can connect with you online and find out more about what you do and how to get your book?
Yes, thank you. So I can be found online at divine.com, and it's an unusual spelling of divine. It's D, A as in amazing, VINE.com, or social media at Divine Optimism. And my book with all the tried and true tips of how to be practically optimistic is The Optimist's Manifesto. It's an optimist's guide to living in the real world. And it's available in hundreds of independent bookstores around the country and on Amazon.
Fantastic. And we will put links to all of those things for sure on the show notes and right in the podcast app that you're listening to. So you can click on over and follow Elizabeth on Instagram. I just did this morning, so I'm excited to be connected with you there and just soak up all of her wisdom on optimism and just living a good life. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Kelly. This was such a delightful conversation.
I just love what Elizabeth had to say about this idea that if you're an optimist, your head is just sort of in the clouds, and you know that you're not really paying attention to what's real around you. And I think that the beauty of practical optimism is that you can see what's real and you can experience the struggle and still remain positive and still see possibility. So I really hope that all of you can take this into your own lives today, that you can begin a practice or continue a practice of practical optimism, because it is so powerful. And oh my gosh, I will just say from a personal point of view, it really is a joyful way to live. It really is joyful. It really is powerful. And I am so thankful to have optimism in my life, and I hope that you have it in yours too. I just want to remind you the deadline to apply for the mastermind is coming up. So go ahead on over to kellycovert.com/mastermind. Get your application in. If this is what you're really needing this summer, I don't want you to miss out on it. And if you're not sure, you can email me, kelly@kellycovert.com. I've had quite a people email me with questions. Please reach out if you have questions, because I don't want those questions to stand in the way of your success this summer. So kellycovert.com/mastermind, or shoot me an email or connect with me on Instagram if you have questions about it. I want to remind you, we need you in this world doing your work and being you. When you show up as you, and when you honor your heart's desires and your heart's actions and your heart's pulls, that's when you are in your best self, that's when you are being exactly who you were meant to be. Remember, you don't have to look like anybody else. You don't have to do things like anybody else. When you honor who you are, that is the sweet spot. You are worthy.